Well, thank you very much, Khalida, for this nice introduction. And we have to say that we took up current developments and latest discussion in our presentation. So it's the title is kind of outdated because our presentation is more or less the pre-survey of the issue with the title, to what extent does the AI chatbot prophetically point to future AI-written theology? And besides an outdated title of our paper, we also have the most uninspiring PowerPoint presentation you can see now. Let me see. Okay. So anyway, while every reading of an analog text disempowers the author to a certain extent, see Roland Barthes' Death of the Author, when AI comes into play, AI is suspected of disempowering the recipients. So how can we describe and outline the authority emanating from the AI and the authority of the recipients? Above that, what does the authority of AI mean for the production and reception of theology? How can the authority of prophecy be compared with AI? AI doomism, is it justified? Is it possible that AI is capable of wiping out humankind? Exactly this is what scientists have warned about. A group of scientists and managers, including Sam Altman, has bespoken that artificial intelligence poses an extinction risk to humanity in a statement. It should be a global priority to mitigate this risk, like other risks that affect the society as a whole, such as pandemics and nuclear wars. Can AI thus be understood as a prophecy of doom, or rather a prophecy of salvation? These are the questions we want to ask in today's lecture. Axel and I work in two different areas, biblical theology plus religious education. I work in a school as well as a teacher, and Axel works in the border area of science and theology within systematics. So our approach is taken from these different point of views. Therefore, we would like to have a quick look at the literary theological phenomenon of prophecy. Secondly, present some of Sam Altman's statements. Thirdly, we look at the attribution of authority and the de- and reconstruction of authority. Then we want to talk about consciousness, personality rights, and last but not least, ethical claims to handle complex AI systems. From the 8th century BCE onward, prophecy was a means for understanding historical events and coping with them. Above that, there was tension in the relationship between the representatives of power, that is, the authority of the kingdoms, and prophecy, that is, the authority of God. The prophet is the only mouthpiece of God and does not need to support his message with arguments. For example, a statement that Ahab does something what displeases the Lord in 1 King 21:20 is quite sufficient. No further argumentation is needed. As God's spokespersons, prophets are commissioned and empowered to declare the divine message, regardless of its acceptance. Whether speaking out against social injustices or economic improprieties or confronting a nation's idolatry and rebellion, the oracles are usually introduced as the word of Adonai, or the word that came to the prophet from Adonai. The word that prophets utter is therefore not their own. It derives neither from the dominant power structures of the community nor from the force of their personality. It is the word of God and thus conveys a marked sense of importance and urgency. Such conditions draw attention to the task of distinguishing true from false prophecy. Contrary to false prophecy, the message in true prophecy depends on the authority of divine experience. Data-supported processes are not socio-historically and politically supported, as was prophecy. With data-supported processes, authorities always produced. But historical is one of the people who continue to develop and spread AI with OpenAI, Sam Altman, the chief executive of OpenAI. These days, Sam Altman is touring through Europe under the slogan, "The Future of Artificial Intelligence." And on Twitter, he reports that he has met, for example, Olaf Scholz or Emmanuel Macron or Ursula von der Leyen at the latest. On his latest tweets is One of his latest tweets is, AI is how we describe software that we don't quite know how to build yet, particularly software we are either very excited about or very nervous about. He seems to recognize that AI can go both ways, either the prophecy of doom or the prophecy of salvation. A couple of days ago, on May 22nd, Sam Altman posted on Twitter something like an IAEA for advanced AI is worth considering, and the shape of the tech may make it feasible. Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and Ilya Sutskever have written kind of a manifest on openai.com on May 22nd. They have written, given the picture as we see it now, it's conceivable that within the next 10 years, AI system will exceed expert skill level in most domains and carry out as much productive activity as one of today's largest corporations. We can have a dramatically more prosperous future, but we have to manage risk to get there. Sam Altman and the others want to control the risks. They kind of foresee, but are even more convinced that AI is leading to a much better world. Stephen has picked up on this as well. So it would be important that such an agency focuses on reducing existential risk and not issues that should be left to individual countries, such as defining what an AI should be allowed to say. That's what they said as well. And Sam Altman and the others said that we believe it would be risky and difficult to stop the creation of superintelligence because the upsides are so tremendous. The cost to build it decreases each year. The number of actors building it is rapidly increasing, and it's an inherent part of the technological path we are on. Stopping it would require something like a global surveillance regime, and even that isn't guaranteed to work. So we have to get it right. That is a very interesting sentence, we think. First of all, it's like the manifest in the first person plural, and because the whole society is in demand. Sam Altman himself dissociates himself to the AI, for example, ChatGPT. Responsibility is handed over, a statement assigned, and we all have to get it right. But the innovation of AI is always specific. Authority is produced. The answer, for example, from ChatGPT is attributed authority and can be critical of domination or the confirmation of this existing political structure. For example, one of the first requests to ChatGPT was to write a beautiful and positive poem about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. ChatGPT refused to write a poem about Donald Trump's positive attributes, but was writing one about Joe Biden's. The inherent moral is somewhat controlled. The message seems to depend on the authority of an unknown, but yet not divine quantity. It is the intransparency Beth was talking about on the panel as well. Thus, we can summarize the first observation. Sam Altman denies the authority, but calls for an authority similar to IAEA. ChatGPT or AI produces authority. We have seen the example of the refused poem about Donald Trump. Authority is attributed to the chatbot as it were true prophecy and negates the authority of the users. Its usability and its outcome is said to minimize the user's authority to form their own independent opinion, even if the chatbot is used only to gain acceptance by its users. Thus, we have a fourfold authority: denial of authority and the request of authority on producer side, as AI is something beyond the authority, and on the side of the consumers, the production of authority and the decrease of authority. We can summarize this fourfold authority under the title of the de- and the reconstruction of authority. So let's see what else there's to notice about this prophecy of doom. Axel.
Yeah, once we understand that AI reshapes the authority of participating actors, then the question becomes how this is practically realized. How is authority de- and reconstructed? AI can serve encroaching governments as well as particular interests of individual groups. So we need to understand how these groups can use the reassessment of authority to serve their own interest. One point is consciousness. The narrative is that the fear of AI follows the idea that it may develop an own consciousness. But consciousness is not a software phenomenon, as you know. That means if someone warns against such a development, the warning is about something that is not reflected in the technology. However, there are different assumptions here. Some assume that it is an emergent complexity phenomenon. But what does this mean? To use descriptions, for example, like emergent or complex, that means that the principle of hope is hidden in these little scientific words. Complexity or emergence are not at all useful design guidelines for any kinds of machines. A property or a capacity is also nothing we can deal with in terms of design. So from an engineer's point of view, we have to ask how properties can be built. You know that no ability originates from nothing, ex nihilo, because AI is not about God's creation, it's about engineering, and this is human co-creation. But if you look at consciousness through empirical glasses, it has no weight, you cannot measure it, it doesn't occupy a space, so it's immaterial. No computer is capable of expressing consciousness phenomena. And it is not the result of complexity. So the question is not about increasing the complexity of the software we use. If not software, then we speak about the hardware. Perhaps in future, it might be possible to generate some kind of machine consciousness. It might be that neuromorphology will substitute algorithms. But also in this case, while reflecting the morphology of neuronal networks, AI will remain devices. And this is exactly the main condition for the reassessment of authority. Whenever people endow AI with authority, they mix up physical properties on the one hand and immaterial consciousness on the other. This is important to know not only for us, but especially for decision makers. For example, when it comes to the question of personality rights. What will happen if we mix up empirical capacity of AI and human consciousness? It might be that politicians may plan to grant some personality rights for the most sophisticated AI systems. This is also why Sam Altman links AI with nuclear power or biochemical weapons all the time. AI is not interested in the destruction of the world. It has neither fear nor courage. But what is really important is the question, what would happen if we grant personality rights for devices? We have already spoken about personhood. I think the manufacturers will welcome this. The manufacturers, they should be pleased about personality rights for computers because this will release them from product liability on the long term. And if we start to speak about such kinds of personality, immediately we must think about, don't we neglect our influence on it? Once we ascribe consciousness to a system, must we not also grant dignity at the same time? At least in the Western society, we cannot accept conscious systems without dignity. But there is no technology assessment for dignitaries. This morning, we have discussed this. Johannes Hoff spoke about the question of binarity, and he spoke about this hierarchy of beings. And this is exactly the question. If beings become fluid, then personality rights may become the key to the misuse of AI. That's why we have to ask how to handle AI, how to handle hypercomplex algebra. and I suggest four points. First is to distinguish human thoughts and AI impulses. AI systems, they correlate impulses, and the question of causality cannot be settled in general. Also, whether a bias is present in the data set used cannot be verified by generally applicable principles. Human assessment relies all the time on the possibility of out-of-the-box thinking. This is indispensable. But this also means that AI is a real challenge to us. Human thinking is only human when it goes beyond the box. Otherwise, we make humans to become machines. Second, we need to distinguish between physical condition and our perception of this system. The best way to hinder a mix-up is to shape a system in a technical manner. And this is why we have to think about the design. Do we really need robots looking like humans? Do we really need to give names to the devices? This is not only a question of marketing, it is a question of moral attitude. We can make robots to become icons, but we do not need to do so. It is only when we believe AI to be human that it may become dangerous. So the design of a system is a matter of authority, because we regard humaneness, dignity, personality, moral attitude, all these things, we regard phenomenologically. But the phenomenon AI is designed by ourselves. And so the design of a device is also the design of a moral attitude to it. Third, we need to distinguish between power, political power, and AI capacity. AI systems are capable of abusing power. The only thing is that power will not be misused by the systems, but with the help of the systems. So our question is, which government in future will make use of the personality of a computer to restrict the personality of people? Who will limit the freedom of people through the claim to boost technology or science? Once a system has calculated from human thoughts that, let's say, someone is planning an attack with 70% probability, then engineers know that this is nonsense, but the calculation is the outcome of cultural patterns, moral attributions, political power, and technology-driven belief. But we already can read these things in big tech companies' promotional brochures. So we don't have to protect ourselves from AI's authority, but from people and organizations who want to use or abuse this technology and the authority of the technology. And at the end, fourth point, we need to distinguish between life and death. A silicon crystal, a dead system, has not to fight for its existence. The fight for existence is only for biological systems, no matter how good the corresponding science fiction films are that process such material. So today, AI is the technology for monitoring and optimizing processes. It is advancing industry tremendously, and countless processes will soon even run fully autonomously. But it is only an enabling technology and will be a huge driver of innovation. The dangers cause not from the technology itself, but from our attributions of authority. And this is a point where the criticism of religion can come to the table, because religion is all about the attribution of authority. I think at this point, theologians can attribute a lot to the discussions, and especially to this ominous we. We have to get it right. Who is this we? Thank you.